Good morning, everyone. I would like to introduce Eva Pagán-Hill, who is a licensed mental health counselor. She has been a bereavement counselor for over 15 years and is presenting on losses with ALS today. Eva.
Good morning. Thank you, Maritza. Today, we were going to talk about losses, and everybody knows that you cannot talk about losses without talking about grief and mourning. And we all know that the person living with ALS, the losses and the grief started way before the diagnosis. There are things that the person noted that were happening in their bodies. They were changing, and the doctors take a long time to tell you what's wrong with you. And finally, when the diagnosis comes, there's a mixture of emotions that run the gamut. On one hand, there's relief that I finally know what's wrong with me, but there's anxiety. What's next? And then there's grief. They lost these different abilities. And that happens to the family also. And so grief comes with every loss, with every change in our lives. And grief is the inner experience that we feel of all our thoughts, our feelings that relate to these losses that have happened or will happen. Anticipatory grief is the grief that comes when we expect to lose. And the emotions are all the same. They run the gamut from shock, numbness, confusion, disorientation, anger, guilt, sadness, all of the above. And loss can come from many things. Loss of relationship, loss of abilities, loss of job and financial security. All this comes when you have a major change in your life, which is, of course, a diagnosis of ALS. And so when we lose, we have to really stop and acknowledge that what we're feeling. But we live in a society that is telling us that we need to be strong, that we need to stay busy, that we need to be stoic, that we don't need to open the wounds. And that is not healthy. That makes us feel worse, because grief that is stuffed is like the jack in the box. It's going to come out in every area. And the grief is for the adults, and the grief is for children. And children's grief is different experience. And so we need to educate ourselves on how to support our children at the same time that our heart is breaking and that we are experiencing changes. So when we're hit in the face with a diagnosis, then we need to take a moment, breathe deep, and say, what's happening? Not just stuff it and say, I got to be strong for my wife, for my husband, for my kids, for everybody. We need to experience. And that is called mourning. And mourning in our society has been shame. Mourning, we have just totally gone against it. And that is important. Many people cry in the shower so no one sees it. Or I've been told they cry in the car. I don't know why. As soon as they get in the car, that's when they start crying. Or they walk the dog in the rain just to be able to cry. No, we need to acknowledge our pain. We really need to do that. We need to understand that to be able to move in our process and be able to live during all this period, we have to mourn. And that is not easy, not easy at all. The losses that come day to day, week to week, month, times minute to minute, are happening all around. And we need to do that. And we need to do it for ourselves as well as for our loved ones. I love to hear Dr. Alan Wolfeld. In fact, he was here this past week presenting on the importance of the mourning. And he talks about us having some needs in our time of mourning, needs that will help us move in our process, because grief is a journey. Mourning is a journey. Grief is inner, mourning is outward. And so we first need to acknowledge the reality of our grief and our pending loss is. But most of us are in denial and shock, and we don't want to accept. But it's when we accept and acknowledge that we can look into options and we can see how it is that we're going to face what's coming. Because if we don't acknowledge it, it doesn't exist. And so we stay stuck. We stay in a chaos of disorientation and confusion. And so we need to acknowledge the reality. Sometimes that acknowledgement means that we hug each other and cry together as we say, this is what's happening, and we educate ourselves. And what are the resources? And ALS has wonderful information on their webpage about what I'm talking about. Services in this conference will focus on many of those things. So, but first comes the acknowledgement. We are, what is happening within us? And that changes. That changes. It's not like today we acknowledge this and that and, oh, we're fixed. We can just forget about it. Every day, every moment. Grief is a process, a journey. It's individual, it's unique. And each one of us feels it differently. Person living with ALS, family member, the children, the friends, we all feel an array of that we need to. Then the next need, which is to embrace that, to embrace both the pain and the joy of anticipatory grief. And that may sound incongruent. I have pain and joy. Well, there's the joy that at least I know what's happening and that I can do some things to enjoy whatever time we have left of whatever change that comes next in between each change. And embracing it, we need to do that in doses, not all at time to overwhelm ourselves. We need to honor feeling, and we need to look inward, outward, what we're feeling, how important that is. You know, because many people, they say, oh, I grieved, that's it, no more. But then one day out of the blue, they start crying and they don't know why they did. And embrace the emotion, and they are not honoring their journey. I know people that I talk to that a big change in their life has happened of any kind, be it a divorce, be it a loss of financial, be it death. And they think, oh, I'm doing just fine. I'm doing just well. I am coping exceptionally well. And then 2 months down the road, they call, I woke up this morning and I couldn't stop crying. Why is that? Because we need to honor our process. We need to understand that these emotions are part of us. We need to also explore the memories associated with this love that we feel for the person, for ourselves, for whatever attachment we have, and whatever it is we are losing. hug, to talk. All of those things, embrace the memories and honor them before them, over, as the love, as we are in the process. Because these memories are the ones that make sense to our life, give us comfort that will help us from day to day. And when the time comes that we have to go from presence to memory, then that's what we hold on to, what is dear to us. And I want to make sure that you understand that none of these needs are easy. It is not easy to go through all this process. So here comes one of the biggest ones and most difficult ones, which is we need to develop a new identity, a new self-identity. Who am I at this moment? And I am not ALS. I am a person living with. I am a family member living with. How do I develop that identity? How do I find myself amidst this chaos, this disorientation, this process that is not easy? It is the hardest thing I've faced in my life. How do I do that? And it takes patience. It takes love for ourselves and love for our love. And in that process of developing self-identity, we also go to the next need, which is to search for meaning. How do I find meaning in this situation that I have been dealt in my life? And that takes us to the spiritual component. Notice I didn't say religious component, spiritual component, because religion is a part of spirituality. Spirituality is much. It gives a sense and meaning and purpose to our life, in spite of whatever we are feeling, in spite of whatever we are going through. It is a task that we need to go in every stage of grief and mourning. It is a place that gives us a sense. Not that we are, that this having this illness is just the most fantastic. It gives us a sense of the situation and spiritually, emotionally, with whatever's happening to us. And definitely the last need is to reach out for support. We need to reach out for support. And it can be anyone. It can be a family member. It can be a friend. It can be someone that is a pastor, a priest, a rabbi. And it can be a counselor. If we have difficulty talking to the one that is closest to us, talking to someone objective can help us. But many of us don't do that. Many of us do not honor this process. Many of us do not do all that is needed. And so it is a very difficult task, and when we feel all this array of emotions, when we acknowledge that we're feeling that, when we make memories and we remember those that we have already made, when we explore what it is we're feeling and how can we find meaning and how can we develop a sense of identity amidst all that's happening, we can start to live in spite of. And that's the biggest thing, to live in spite of whatever's happening. And many of us have not done that. We live outside of ourselves. We're in an object relation. We live for when, not for now. And so when we are experiencing this, we are anxious about and worried about what's happening and what will happen. But we need to take some steps backward and look at what are our strengths. What have we used in the past to focus ourselves? And how can we bring it now? Who are the people that can provide us that support? Who are there that I can cry on their shoulder and they won't try to fix me, and they will just be there and say, I'm here, I'm present, I care. Who are they? How do we validate and normalize what we are going through and what our children are going through and what our loved ones are? And how do we get away from that sense of isolation, come a whole? Because that's the first thing that we go to. We try to escape and hide in a cocoon. We go back to almost like a fetal position in which we don't know how to face everything. So we need to start opening that and embrace and love, because grief is going to happen if you love someone. There is no protection against this. It is a part of life. And we experience it, have to open up and make it external. Grief is inward, mourning is external. Because let's say you have a wound and you don't work on putting any Neosporin or Band-Aid, etc. It'll fester. It might become gangrenous. The same happens with our emotions. They need to come out. They need to be taken. We need to have Neosporin of love. They need to have way to be cared for. Crying in the shower may be okay for a while, but it doesn't help. Live in spite of. Crying. Making a journal. Writing how you're feeling day to day. Writing what are you thinking? How can you work this through? Artwork is a good thing. Poetry. Just making videos of memories in which you talk about your life. All of these things are a conglomerate of things that we can do as we mourn, as we explore our pain, as we look at these memories and explore them and live them and value them. And as we change and move in our identity to also value and change and accept. But change always brings chaos. Change always brings sadness. Even if it's a good change, we feel sad because something is. So we need to do that. What is our purpose? How do we support each other? How do we do this? How can we together do? I'm sorry, my battery was not connected right. Sorry. Technology, that's an interesting thing. So as we come to an end, I don't see any questions. You have a few minutes for me to answer questions about what you are going through, what you would like me to address aside from what I've talked. It is important that we reach out. And ALS has some awesome resources. Awesome. Oh my God. Was I gone? Did I leave for a while? I hope not. Please look at an ALS in the webpage. They have this awesome presentation. I hope you can see it. And it's about loss and grief. And it has many of the pointers that I've said. And I love this saying that says, mourn not just for the loss of what was, but also for what will never be, and then gently, lovingly. And we can do that through all these needs that I have been talking about. So I am available. You have my contact on the setting. No questions. That is true, Marisa. That is one of the web pages of ALS, and that's where I'm directing you. You will find that. You will find resources. There's also support groups that are available. Marisa leads many. Participate in them. They are open. There's meditation. Advent Health Hospice, which is who I work for, has a love meditation that Flavia Cipollaro also runs on every Tuesday from 5 to 5:30, where she practices chants of love, peace, and harmony that are very, very comforting. But there's many others that you can have. There's a question asking me if I have a bereavement loss group. I normally run in English and Spanish a Daughters Missing Mothers support group, but we have many groups going on through the year. Right now, the fall schedule is coming out, and there are grief support groups for young widows. There's grief support for senior widows and widows. Ongoing support groups. We even had a COVID support group last quarter. We have workshops coming up that I will do in Spanish, Grief for the Holidays, and Don Thomas, another licensed mental health counselor, will do in English. We do a virtual memorial service. We have, hopefully, this November we'll be able to have a camp, healing camp for healing for children from first grade to senior year. Last year we had to stop it because of COVID, but this year we're hoping that we can have it. Right now it's scheduled. So there's different support groups going on within Advent Health. Vitas has support groups. Cornerstone has support groups. Many support groups for grief, definitely. Bereavement counseling in English and Spanish is available. There are counselors specialized in loss, both within the hospices as well as in the community. There's resources, and you can reach out and find them because they are available. There's candle lighting ceremonies that many different churches as well as funeral homes run that are very comforting. Mourning is important when you have no words to say. Ceremony and ritual are important. And we have become a de-ritualized society. We need to have rituals. We need to do that. We need to find those rituals that comfort us. Especially now in the time of COVID, that it's been difficult to have any of these rituals. We can do them through this marvelous setting of virtual connection. The same as hugging, but we can send hugs from our soul to yours, from our spirit to yours. So please don't hesitate in reaching out. There's resources available for you. Identify people that are there to support you. You don't have to grieve alone. You don't have to grieve in hiding. You can bring it out in public, acknowledge it, and share it. Then you will feel that people will wrap their arms around, and you will feel comforted within whatever it is you're going through. This time that we are living has set aside all of that. We think that we have to be an island. We are not an island. We are a community. Reach out to community. There are, and once again, get to acknowledge the reality of your loss, embrace your emotions, whatever it is you are losing or have lost, explore the memories associated with whoever you love or are attached to that you're losing, develop a new self-identity, search for meaning, reach out for support, and accept support. So no questions, Maritza, for me. No comments. So maybe people want to wait to call me separately. You have my contact. And we're here for you. I think it would help you quite a bit to attend a support group, like a workshop on what is normal in grief, because there's so many emotions that we think, oh my God, I need an antidepressant. And no, it's sadness, not depression. So maybe just talking about it, reaching out. Sometimes a little bit of something can help us. We just need love and caring. So please use the resources. There's workshops on grief in the holidays. There's candlelightings, hope for the holidays, because these are difficult times that we experience when we're grieving. So what else can I tell you? Just be yourself, meaning develop your new identity. And those memories, treasure them every day. Yes, other people from other areas can come in. In fact, in the Spanish support group that I just ended of Daughters Missing Mothers, there was a lady who had to go back to tend for a loved one in Mexico, and she was online. In the English daughter support group that I did, I have a lady whose mother here, and she was in Ohio. And right now, for the one I'm starting October 11th, there's a lady that is living in Illinois that's going to attend that her mother died here. So that is part of those groups. Yes, and definitely the ALS support groups do continue to provide infinite knowledge and sense of community, Diane. So do attend, encourage other people to attend, because people think that seeking support is a sign of weakness. It is not. So I say goodbye to you, and I wish you love and memories.